This is terrible for me. I need to stay close to the mic. I usually do a lot of gesture. I walk a lot, so it's good that I don't have a lot of things to type on the laptop. So my name is Frédéric Harper. You can call me Fred if it's easier. I'm from Montreal. You already noticed my beautiful accent. Now with the latest election, I'm kind of screwed because I always started my presentation about like, hey, my name is Frédéric Harper, not like the person you're thinking about right now. So I think I can still do that joke for a couple of weeks, but hopefully we're gonna forget this guy really soon. So feel free to tweet during the presentation using @fharper for stuff you like, stuff you don't like. Can you hear me okay? Is it okay? I usually don't need a mic, but now for the recording, is it good? Yeah, awesome. So I'm a senior technical evangelist at Immunio, and we are in the security space. I'm not a security guy, so that's going to be an interesting talk. The slides and the recording is going to be online on the PyCon website, but I'm also going to put this on my blog, so feel free to go see after. The link will be there. So the talk today is your Python application secure? So raise your hand. Is security for your application important? Is the people that did not raise their hand are just still sleeping or didn't think that security is not important? You can just walk and go out from the room. It's okay. It's okay. Usually people raise their hand. It's quite important, but do you have time to think about security when you're creating your application, when you're adding features? Let's be honest. Do you really take the time? Do you really have the time? I would assume that in your head, you said no. Is it the case? Do you have the expertise? Is there any security expert in the room? Awesome. Nobody, so I'm going to look credible in front of you guys. So you may not have the expertise, and you may not have the money. Like hiring security expert is the best way that can help you to have your web application secure, but it costs a lot of money, like hiring any other expert. It's not because they're like more expensive than anyone else. You need to pay for expertise. You need to pay for experience. But at the end of the day, did you ever ask yourself that question? Is your application that secure? Before being an evangelist, I was a developer for like 10 years, and I'm kind of ashamed to say this, but I never asked myself that question. Is my application secure? Maybe I was a shitty developer. Maybe that's true. But I talked to a couple of developers when I started to enter the security space, and mostly everybody that were either honest enough or drunk enough told me that, hey, no. I never really thought about is my application secure enough? And it's not about hey, maybe I know the best practices, maybe I have some skills, some expertise in security, but maybe I'm stuck with those legacy application, with those spaghetti code or application you built 5 years ago that you're kind of annoyed that you did it, code, or just application that it's working. You don't know how, but it's critical for your business and you just don't want to touch that code. But that code may have security issues, may have vulnerabilities. And I totally know it's a WordPress slide in a Python conference, but bear with me. I wanted to talk just a little bit about a small story that happened to me. I used to have my blog on WordPress. And WordPress is quite popular out there. They have the most number of websites running on WordPress in the world. It's a stat, it's there. And at some point, my blog was super slow. And I was like, okay, my host, maybe there's something on the server. Maybe it's one of those plugins that I put because I'm too lazy to create my stuff myself. I'm just using plugins. And I was like, it's slow. There's something happening. And I went to the log file, and I saw a lot of people trying to access my blog, brute forcing, trying some usual username and password. I was like, what the hell? My blog is not even popular. I'm not New York Times, I'm not CBC, I'm not name it. I'm not Diverge, I'm not, my blog is a small piece on the web. And I was like, why people are doing this? Kids having fun, some people trying to get free access to my host, to host FTP, or just put malware, anything. The truth is, it's happening right now, and it's probably happening to your web application right now, and you don't even know it. You have to remember that story. No matter if you like the idea or no matter if your name got out or no, it was a real sad story. Not even about like the people that tried to cheat on their wife or husband. It's more about like some people that ruined their life. It's another discussion. We can argue if they did a great thing or a bad thing. But some people just committed suicide because their name got out. Some people lost their job, lost their family. And believe it or not, this company is done. They still try to recruit new members. Unless you were hiding under a rock for the last couple of months, there is no way you're going to subscribe to that site to try to cheat your wife or husband. If you do this, it's another story. But like that company is done, or at least that website, that product is done. So it's critical. And it may happen to you tomorrow. The thing is that I don't want to scare you, even if it's what I did for the first 5 minutes of my talk. I told you, I'm not a security expert, funny enough. I'm a developer, a technical evangelist who got interested in security. And my goal today is not to make everybody expert in the room. My goal today is to make you think a little more about security when you build your Python application. To include this in your process, to know that there is things happening that you may not even know before, or even if you've known about those issues, you did not realize that, hey, it may happen to me. What happened tomorrow if someone hacked your web application, got into your database, get customers' information, wipe your database, wipe any data, just like give a bad experience to your user when they go to your website? What's going to happen? Maybe no more job, maybe no more company, maybe your application is done. And I'm kind of like negative this morning. It's because I didn't drink my coffee. But at the end of the day, it's reality. That may happen. So let's see some of those like most popular or important traits when it comes to security. So do you know where that code comes from? No. Maybe I'm too old. Like it's coming from Hackers, the movie. It's a really whole movie. I thought that it makes sense, like security hacker movie. No? Okay. Toronto, folks. So if you, there is a small organization called OWASP. This is the Open Web Application Security Project. Basically, it's there's chapter everywhere. There is one in Toronto, one in Montreal. There's one everywhere. And their goal is to trying to make a little more mainstream security, but also to help people, help developers, help DevOps to just have best practices. And they have a top 10 every like 2-3 years. And one of the most important trait that comes to the top of the list all the time is SQL injection. So those of you that laugh, either you read the XKCD comic or you just don't like my beard. But if you read the XKCD comic, it's quite funny. And this is basically what is a SQL injection. So it's a way for attackers to modify the structure of SQL statements, queries, to either get more data than they should, or to alter some data inside your application. Now you're going to tell me, Fred, like they don't have access to my code. They cannot like really play with my SQL statements. And there is a lot of chances that you use databases. But they can. There is a way to do this. Let me show you one example. So if I go to that website, obviously this website is not a good practices. So there is some issue in that website. But I know that, what is the username? Always forgot. It's a trader. So I know that username. It's trader@bank.com. But for whatever reason, like I saw someone trying to log in, maybe it's mine, and I just want to have fun, and I don't remember the password. So I try trader and say, no, it's not working, sorry, wrong password. But I try again. I'll say, okay, before contacting support to try to get a password, let's try trader with a simple quote. Just see what's going to happen. Like, is the person taking the password to create the SQL query to ask the database if the password is right? And if I try to log in, I'm going to have an error on the server. That means that somewhere, someone did not escape my simple quote and my password. So if I go back to logged in, and what I'm going to try this time, That's bing.com. I'm not even going to put a password. Let me show you what I'm going to put. Is it big enough? Yeah. Okay, let me show you what I'm going to put in the password. I'm going to put this. And for those of you that did some SQL, no matter the where clause. Thank you. No matter that thing that you have in the SQL statement, if I put or, oh my God, 1 = 1, my SQL statement will be true, no matter else, no matter what happened. So because I have an intuition that this application let me do this because I had an error when I put a sample quote, let me put in the password, this text only. And I'm going to be able to log in, even without the right password. And trust me, once you know this, you're going to try this on every website that you know. Most of them, it won't work. But the idea here is to show you that it's quite easy, it's some application to do SQL injection. And that one is give me access to some personal information without even knowing the password. And now some of you look at me and say, Fred, you're a bastard. I'm like, I don't do this. I'm a good coder. Great. But you may use like framework. You may use libraries. You may have those legacy application. There is a lot of ways to do SQL injection. And this is one of the ways. So I got access to a website without even knowing the password. Is it frightening? Yes. We should do trailer. Okay. I'm a little bit too joyful for a Saturday morning. The second most popular, and I hate using the word popular because that makes them famous, but the most important one is cross-site scripting. That you may have heard under the name XSS. So basically, it's the same kind of attack. It's an injection type of attack where I can use JavaScript to run specific or specific code on your customer's browser. And there is different ways that I'm going to be able to, or different type of attacks that I'm going to be able to do with XSS. I'm going to be able to hijack some session. I'm going to be able to access some personal information or get privileged access, or even trying to do some exploit in the browser. That happened to me recently when I was going on all the web pages in my browser in one tab. And I had some ads in all websites, even on websites where I know that I should not have any ads. And it's because one website somewhere, like I had a XSS attack on one of the website where that was super clear. So I have an XSS attack in one of the website, and they were able to put some JavaScript inside the website without me knowing it. So it's also quite easy because most of the time we don't escape what's coming from the user. So if I go to that website, the most beautiful website you ever see, ever. I didn't make it. So I have a search box, and I know that in that search box, how the developer made it is that it's just going to display me my search term, which makes sense. Like, hey, trying to look for that term, this is what we found in the database. So I'm just going to put a script tag, alert, the most terrifying JavaScript code ever. And what's going to happen? Like the page is like executing my JavaScript right now. Let's agree again. It's not the most terrible thing that could happen to your website, but still, there is some annoying pop-up at some point, and depending on the browser, like Chrome is kind of great. You can say prevent, stop that annoying pop-up. But I did not even play in the code. I'm not the developer of that application, and I was able to inject some JavaScript inside the application from something super trivial, the search box. It's because the developer make a perfect working code. Like, hey, you enter a term, I'm going to search, and I'm going to display that search term in my web page. But I was able to inject some JavaScript without you knowing it because it's happening on the client side. But even better, I saw some application where there is no validation made when you create a user account. So I can create my user account, put in my first name, some JavaScript code, and every time you're going to try to display my first name, the browser is going to execute my JavaScript. So it's the second, doesn't look like this with an alert box, but it's the second most important trait on web application. And this one is good for no matter the technology you use. We're talking about Python here. you probably have a HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in your code. So your application is vulnerable to that type of threat. And the third one is remote common execution. And that happens more often than you think. And this one is very scary. The first one was like, hey, I can access your data. It's kind of annoying because you can wipe, you can alter data, you can get information that you should not have access to. XSS is the kind of same thing. You can get access where you should not have access. But the third one can give me access to the shell. I don't know for you. I don't want people to have access to shell command execution because you basically got access to my server and maybe other application and other properties and maybe even other customers on the same server depending on how the infrastructure is done. So this one is quite critical, and that happens quite often because we're going to use eval, we're going to use exec, we're going to use a lot of command that are there to help us as developers to create our application. But at the end of the day, we can open the door to some attackers, to some hackers. And those are the three most popular, the three most important. But there's a lot more. Brute force attack, common username. How often? I see an application and the default logging for the admin panel is admin. Like, seriously? Admin. It's so easy. How often you're going to try to like help your customer, your user, to put a more complex password, but it's still going to put something like I love pizza, or my name is Fred, or I'm going to put my birth date. And all those things give access to your application more easily than you think. Session farming, session hijacking, CSRF tampering. I'm going to try to log in, log out from your application to try to get information coming like information on a cookie. You're going to create information about your session to trying to find a pattern, being able to create my access myself. Excessive 400 and 500. You maintain that it's quite trivial, but there is someone somewhere running a scanner and trying to find the typical web page using with that framework, or the typical access page or admin page used with that CMS. And sometimes it's just about also file authorization. I saw a couple of websites where to access the admin panel where you get all the like protected information, you need to enter your username and password. You get on the login page, enter username and password. If it's wrong, you don't have access. If it's right, you have access. Congrats, the information's there. If you access the path directly, you get access to the information because there is no protection on the server. There is no access control on the server. So there is a lot more out there. Unfortunately, I already have to cut in half my presentation because I realized this morning I only had 30 minutes. But go on Google, go on HoApps, you're going to see a lot of those. So there is one rule, and it's not coming from me. Obviously, I would have liked to say something brilliant like this. I found this somewhere. Anything coming from the users is unsafe. So, wow, think about this. Everything coming from the user may not be safe. So if you're taking information from a form, from a search box, upload files, do some verification, sanitize information, escape, do whatever you can to be sure that what's coming inside your application. Think about it. You're taking something externally and you take it in your application. So do what you need to do to make sure that that information is working. It's going to be great. There's a special option, shell equal true, that you may have used. It's easier sometimes to run a specific application on the shell. And it's great for application, but what you do when you do this is that your command is going to be executed in the shell. So you get access to any other shell-based features. By default, I think the shell is at false, but you're going to see a lot if you're the kind of like copy and paste Stack Overflow type of developer, and I'm not putting a judgment here, but it had happened quite often. We're looking for a way to fix an issue. We go on Stack Overflow. Oh, someone put a code. It seems to work. Copy and paste, working in application. Damn, I fixed my issue. I saw a lot of shell equal true because it's just easier to make it happen sometimes. But when you do this, that's going to be easier for me to add a pipe to your command and do like rm.rf on your home directory. And if I have the access, bam, you're done. I wipe your server. So if you do this, try to escape. maybe what's coming from the user. In that case, I try to list a directory. Like, you can see my Python skills. It's like super complex code. What I use the quote function. Simple function that not a lot of people use. That's just going to put some quote around that variable, around that text, and I'm going to be able to escape. So instead of trying to list some file, that's going to be able to remove my home. I'm just going to try to list a file that probably does not exist. So worst case, I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do, but that hacker, that cracker, whatever you call it, that hacker is not going to be able to do bad thing on your server. Same thing, try to escape anything you can. Like everything coming from the user, don't trust this. Flask will do some job for you. There is some framework out there. At the beginning, I was saying, or I thought that I said that like you're quite depending about frameworks and libraries. If there's security issues within those libraries, you're stuck with those. But at the end of the day, they also do a tremendous work to be sure that they fix most of the security issues. So use framework. With Flask, there's templates. It's a lot more work. We can argue about pros and cons. But at the end of the day, the templates are going to do some work from you. They're going to try to escape some input from your user to be sure that it's going to be the safer that you can. Try to sanitize some of your code. The most important part when you try to access the database, don't use the unsafe example at the beginning. Just try to use the execute command with the parameters. And the placeholder is going to change depending. This one is for MySQL, and I think it's great for PostgreSQL also. But by doing this, it's not a lot more work. Don't tell me like that's going to change all your day of work by doing this. But you may solve a lot of possible issues. This one is a great discussion we can have. There's a lot of like ORM people pro and cons again that can slow down, that can slow down your process, but that can remove your dependencies around the database. But at the end of the day, if you use ORM, the object relational mapper, you're gonna be able, again, the ORM is gonna do some work for you to escape some parameters or some variable coming from the user, or no matter where it's coming. Avoid exec, if possible. Because again, I'm gonna be able to execute any other type of command, and you're going to probably give access to your shell command execution to the hacker. So again, it seems like basic stuff, but trust me, when you look just a little bit online and you try to find some tutorials about Python, you go on Stack Overflow, you're going to see a lot of those. And I don't think it's because people want to like just open security all in their applications. It's just you don't know what could happen with those things. And you just think, oh, it's working. It makes sense for me. Nobody's going to try to attack my application, but that happened. So there is a lot of ORM libraries out there. I did not try any of those, so I cannot like say, hey, use that one or use the other one. But this is a great option. There is a great option for you. Now with XSS, there's a lot of way in your code you can try to fix your code or at least prevent injection of JavaScript. So if you go on OWASP and you look at the documentation, this is all the tricks you can get. So right now after the presentation, you go on that page and you learn everything. Make sense? No. So there is a lot of things you can do. But there's a lot of things, a lot of tools that can help you without you directly using best practices. You can use static code analysis. There is some pro and con to do this. And there is not a lot for Python. Like there's Pyland, but it's not doing a lot of things around security. XSS Crappy is an open source one. If I run this on the previous website, it's going to crawl all the website, trying to find all the possible SQL injection or XSS, and it's going to create for me a report with all the possible flaws that I have in my application, with where I can fix this. So that can help me. And there's a couple of scanners out there. The issues with anything related to security is that most of the time it's not free. There's a lot of open source software, but most of the time you're going to have to pay for it. But at the end of the day, it's for the security of your application and your user. So it may worth the price. And there is something new and cool called RASP, Runtime Application Self-Protection. It's basically protection that you add directly to your application that's going to protect you on a runtime, either by adding a library, and most of the time they're going to do monkey patching. This is what we do at Immunio, but it's not a product pitch. I don't want to go too far in this. You add that library to Python, and you're good to go. You get protection, but you also get reporting right inside your application. So that can prevent any issues that you're going to have on the runtime. And there is other little small trick. That seems to be like default and truest type of things, but trust me, and you probably read that slide and say, oh my God, there is some stuff that I'm just not doing myself. So think about like never store, please stop doing this. Store a clear password in the database. Stop, please. Okay, let's agree on one thing. Stop to do this. And don't use MD5, it's kind of like a little bit shit. Use like cryptographically, slow hash function, put HTTPS, talk with your DevOps. There's a lot of things that could happen on the server that are gonna profit you as a developer. So there is a lot of things. I'm running out of time. Again, people that know you know that I talk a lot. Don't smile. So there's a lot of things. I may start a blog post series about small tips and tricks about security because I only had 30 minutes. I'm going to put those online. The thing is that some of you look at me and say, thanks, friend, you just lost 30 minutes of my life. And no, it's not a case. So please stop fighting against what I just said. Just accept the fact that we don't take enough time to secure your application. Accept the fact. And I'm really serious now. Kind of like go back home, go back to the office, had in your development life cycle, had security. It's not an afterthought. It's super, super important. Read about the best practices, scan your code, use tools, talk to the expert, and just try to do better code right now before it's too late. What is the idiom? It's like better safe than sorry. So better safe than sorry when it comes to security. But remember, nothing is 100% bulletproof. Superman is the best example. There's kryptonite. So any best practices, any tools you're going to use will never protect you 100%. Not even the software working on. But the more best practices you're going to use, the more software tool like WAF, like some firewall, some IPS, everything you're going to do is going to put you one step closer to be a lot more safer for your application, for yourself, and for your customers. So some resources on that note. I have 1 minute. Feel free to send me an email. Feel free to ping me in the coffee break, to ask questions, to comment on the presentation, to insult me. I'm going to be there all day, all weekend. Feel free to send me an email if you have any issues. Ping me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. Go on Immunio if you want to test RASP, real-time security for your web application. If you're using Python, of course, but also if you have any Ruby or Java application. And I'm going to put the slides and on outofcomfortzone.net, my blog in French, English, most of the time in Franglish. So on that note, I hope you had some fun. I hope you learned some stuff, or you're going to go out and think about security and have a good PyCon.